Hey guys, welcome to the Learn Feng Shui podcast, where you'll learn Feng Shui from a classical point of view, taking out the myth and superstition. So if you're interested in learning Feng Shui, Chinese astrology, all things Chinese metaphysics, as well as the superstitions and myths that connect it all, you'll enjoy learning Feng Shui with me. Hey guys, let's take a look at the energy for July. All right, guys, going into July. This July, we're going to experience the energy of the Earth Goat. So we're getting a lot of Earth energy, which we'll talk about here in just a minute, and what that means for us. But remember that when the month starts, it overlaps just a little bit into the next month. So remember, just like the Lunar New Year it doesn't correspond with the Solar New Year, there's also a solar cycle that is considered, and that is the cycle that starts the new animal sign. So this month, that starts on July 7th. And is that first 15-day solar cycle of energy. Remember, there's 2 each month, and that goes through July 22nd. And that first cycle of the Jie Qi cycle is called the Jie cycle, and it is lesser heat. The second solar cycle, called the Qi, is the 22nd through August 7th. And so remember, when we're looking at the start of each month, they kind of break the month down into 2 separate solar cycles called the Jie Qi cycle, and they're kind of thought of as a little micro season. And so back when they named them, of course, the farmers would kind of observe nature, and they would just take the things that they saw in nature and around that time of year, and that's what they named these cycles. And so as you can tell from the lesser heat and the greater heat names, this really is the time of year where we experience the most heat. All right, so again, this July we experienced the month of the Earth Goat, and it really is one of those months that does show how our energy will interact with a pure element. So this month is going to be the pure element of Earth. So that on that top, what's called the heavenly stem is going to be the Earth energy, and of course the goat is the energy of Earth, and it's the ending of the summer season. So remember that the end of each season does end with a earth element, whether it's a yin or yang earth element. And the goat is a yin earth element. So this month we get the month of the yin earth goat. And so I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a reprieve from all the fire energy we've really been experiencing the past couple months. For me personally, it has not interacted well for me, and I've been very stressed out. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be like that for everybody. So I think the earth energy will, although it will bring in a little bit more grounding, kind of cool us down a little bit from maybe the tempers we've been experiencing, maybe feel a little bit more stable and maybe a little bit just nurtured or nurturing. It just kind of adds a little bit of a sense of stability. So that's what the earth element represents, is just kind of that stable grounding energy. So for me personally, I think that'll be a little bit of a kind of calming down, especially since these past few months have really just been a lot of fire energy. So if you feel like things have been a little chaotic with the fire energy, I think you can really look forward to how this earth energy will interact with our personal energy. So our feng shui focus for the month, I feel like, is going to be represented in that earth energy as like a nurturing, caring energy. So remember, again, it's a time of year where we feel hot, we're irritable, we're ready for some kind of change or reprieve from the heat, right? We need it. And so I think that the earth energy, again, is just going to come in and be a little bit more compassionate, caring, and things like that. And so, again, when we think of even just the symbolism of the goat, the sheep, whatever, that horned animal, we tend to think of like a loving, caring little fuzzy guy, right? Especially if you relate that zodiac sign instead of like to a goat to like a sheep, just a caring, loving, kind little guy, right? And so I think when we think about the month being the earth energy, it's also related to the southwest. The sheep or the goat zodiac sign resides in the southwest, which represents that mother energy, that mothering energy, Mother Earth, caring, compassion. And so again, I just think if we make it a focus for the month to just kind of be caring, compassionate, even if we feel short-tempered or if somebody gets short-tempered with us, I think that can go a long way. All right, guys, let's get into the zodiac forecast for the month. All right, right, and so when we look at our zodiac forecast, kind of just before we start and what it means, remember you can have 4 different zodiac animals. So it's called a 4 pillars of destiny chart or a zodiac of sign chart, the Bozzi chart. So I'm going to link that below. You can definitely go to the website, calculate out your zodiac signs. That's all the information you need for this. And so you do have a zodiac sign for the year you're born, the month you're born, the day you're born, and even the hour you're born. If you don't know the time, it's perfectly okay. There's a little box you can tick that gives you the option to do it without the hour. It just takes a little bit of a component away. Maybe you just don't know, what your zodiac sign is for the hour you're born. Okay, and so when we look at the year, that represents like social circle, friends, your community around you, things that are going on around you. And sometimes that clash, if there's a clash with the year or an opposing zodiac sign for your year animal, sometimes you can feel a large impact, okay? And so for the month, that does represent your career and your parental relationships. For the day, that represents your health, your relationships, and really the way you see yourself. And the hour, that represents your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and relationship with children. If you are a superior in your workplace, that could represent the people you manage also. Basically saying it's going to impact that area of your life, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's start out with the goat. So we'll start with the Tai Soi, or the animal sign that governs the month, which is that goat. And again, sometimes this term is kind of interchangeable with like a sheep or a ram. Same thing, okay, same thing. So again, just kind of anytime you see that animal sign that's in your natal chart, and then it's present for the month or the year, it can kind of feel like you're more seen or visible. That's just what the Grand Duke kind of does. So this energy really just means that maybe you're just more visible. But remember that there is a lot of different energy for the year with the goat. There's different stars at the beginning of the year. I do like a zodiac forecast that talks about which stars are present for the sign. And so every year, of course, we get like a different set of what is called auxiliary stars, right? And so there's a couple different stars that will benefit you during this time. There's an energy that's with you for this year, the entire year, that really can kind of turn any negative into positives. So it kind of flips that around. So if you feel like maybe things aren't going well for you this month in particular, but even throughout the year, you're really going to be, I think, pleasantly surprised, or just, not stress out about it too much, because there is the energy that if something seemingly is going wrong, it's going to feel better and it's going to pick up for you, and maybe it'll turn it around to where things are, turning around for you. It'll be right. Okay. And so also, the presence of Sky Happiness Star does mean that there's a possibility of celebration and events, especially for this month. So really enjoy those, okay? All right, so if you have the pig or the rabbit, or maybe you have both, maybe you have the pig and the rabbit, it combines and it will transform the energy of the goat into wood. It's called a wood frame, or the wood trio. So it just kind of depends on how wood impacts you. So growth, self-awareness, expansion are all things that are represented by the wood energy. So again, if you have any like liver issues, anything like that. So if you're having some issues with your digestion, liver and stuff like that, you might want to slow down a little bit. Maybe you want to go ahead and change your diet a little bit for the month. I would suggest that. And it can also represent aggression and anger. So do be cautious that if you already have like an excess of wood energy, that you're not getting like overly aggressive, angry, overstimulated, things like that. So the harmony animal with the goat is the horse. And so I kind of talked about that last month, but the horse combining with the goat does make the element of fire. But I have heard it called the sun and the moon, which is supposed to be bringing noble people into your life. And so it's just supposed to help you troubleshoot. It may be a good month to help find solutions if problems present themselves, or if you've been trying to find the if you've been trying to find a solution to your problem, it might be a month that somebody comes along to help. So just that'll be good for you. And so also, if you are one that benefits from the element of fire, this will just kind of continue on that fire energy for you until it wanes off for August. All right, and then there, of course, is the seasonal combination. So, seasonal combination is the three zodiac signs that make up the element of a certain season. So, of course, for right now, it's going to be summer because it's, we're in the summer season. And so, the snake, the horse, and the goat all make up the seasonal combination of fire or summer. And so if you have the snake or the horse or even both, it's going to form a little bit of a combination there. And this really is the most, like the strongest combination or like the most prominent one, the one that'll dominate all the other combinations in your zodiac chart. And so, that's just kind of what occurs. So if you have the other zodiac signs, but you have a snake and a horse or a snake or just a horse, that means that it's probably going to be more a little bit dominant on that fire energy. And so it just kind of depends on how fire does affect you. But to me, I feel like fire really is going to be that transformational energy. And so again, if you've been benefiting from the fire energy, let that just kind of continue on into the month. And of course, if fire is your wealth element, then that can benefit you greatly. You can kind of see different financial opportunities kind of present themselves, or like good opportunities will present themselves during this time. So take advantage of that. And the energy directly opposing for the month, which is generally referred to as the soipo, or it's usually that'd be called the year breaker, but this is the month breaker because it directly opposes the energy that's governing the month. And that is the ox. So if you think about like a clock face, and the ox would sit at about 1 o'clock, right? And a goat would sit at like 7 o'clock. So if you think about it that way, they're directly in opposition to each other. And so that just means that there can be some change on the horizon for you for the month. So again, you just kind of experience that clash. If you feel like it's too much energy going on and you want to take away that clash, you can actually activate the north area of your home, which is governed by the rat. And so if you activating like a combining energy. So remember the ox and the rat they're harmony. They're in harmony with each other. And so they complement each other. And so this will actually take away your clash. But remember, you do have to activate the area that is located directly north too. So remember, each section of your home, each sector, as it were, the north actually has 3 different little subsections, and the north sits directly in the center of the north at what is called north 2. So I know it's a lot of information, especially if you're very new to feng shui or you're just coming to get a quick zodiac forecast. So again, reach out to me if you feel like you don't know where to find this energy and you want to activate it, or something like that. So I'm pretty friendly, guys. Reach out. I do free energy mappings of the home. I can point out where exactly north 2 is in your home, and we can just I'll email that back to you. No problem, guys. I want to be able to help you. So if you ever have any questions about anything on the energy update, always feel free to message me. I get a lot of questions, so sometimes I take a little bit of time to respond, but I always respond, okay? So don't be shy. All right, jumping into flying stars for the month of July. All right, looking at the flying stars for the month. So the best sectors really, we'll get to that in a second. Let me kind of start off by just saying that each month there's some sectors that have really good flying stars. There's some sectors that have okay flying stars, or they're super usable in this sector, if that makes sense. And then of course we have like the crap flying stars that are going to cause some issues. And so sometimes they fall in a palace where they're not causing a lot of issues and we don't really need to kind of worry too much about them. But let's start off by looking at the best sectors, which is going to be the north. So after the north being really unable to activate for the month of June, because it had that, month breaker energy, had that opposing energy, the north is good. So I like the north. It has that number 8 wealth flying star there. Of course, we like that. Remember, it does bring in hard work and accumulation. And so sometimes that means putting in extra hours at work. Maybe you want to activate that area. Or you want to, maybe accumulate some assets. It's a really good time to activate that north area. And remember, you can activate that with the fan, water, a movement in the area, or just using that sector. So the northeast. The northeast is, again, the number 6 luck star is going to fall there. So when the 6 falls in the northeast, remember the northeast, it's the natal palace of the 8 star. It's where the 8 star comes from, representing like a mountain, and that's why it represents accumulating assets. And so kind of the same thing for the northeast, it has that number 8 energy just kind of natally to it. And so when the 6 goes in there, I mean, it can be pretty good. And it can be used for establishing authority in your field of work. You could use the sector to work in, but I would not really activate the sector since it does have the yearly flying star of 7, which can maybe cause a little bit of communication issues. So do be diligent when you work in the area, but I think all in all, it's pretty good just to work there. All right, so some of the neutral sectors are really kind of going to be like that southwest, that's the south, and kind of the east. Okay, and so those sectors, they are, again, they're areas that may have like kind of a good flying star for the month, but landing in those sectors is some other energies you're not really going to want to activate. So those are kind of neutral. I don't love the Southwest this year because it has what is called the 5 Tiger Shaw, which we'll get to in a second. And the 5 Tiger Shaw, whereas other energies are activated by renovation, or maybe they're just, like flying stars are activated by movement, right? The 5 Tiger Shaw can be activated by both. And so it can be a little bit tricky and a little bit volatile if it is activated negatively. And so just don't do a lot in those sectors. Don't like overly activate them. General use is fine. I mean, my front door falls in the south with the other part of the 5 Tiger Shaw, and I mean, my year has been quite fine, so really just kind of activating the area is not recommended, but general use of the area is totally quite fine. And probably the worst of the flying stars, we always follow that 5 star, which is called the disaster star or the star of instability. And again, that's activated by movement. And so if you're using the sector, and especially if it's like a bedroom or something, maybe you're going to want to put like your Wooloo gourd in there. People like to use those, especially for health. And for that instability star. And so you can use that, or you can use regular metal. If you have metal weights, you can slip those somewhere in your room, or you can alternatively do 6 coins, that are tied with a string to represent the yang metal in that heaven hexagram. Okay, so you can totally do that. Put that in the west. My bedroom's in the west. I'll be doing that this month. But other than that, we can't really avoid it all the time. Like, you don't have to move out of your room or anything. Just if you're in important areas in the west, then place a feng shui cure out. Okay, the southeast it does have the number 2 illness star. I don't really see too big of an issue with this energy unless you're sleeping in the area. The same kind of prescription that we do for the 5 star, the Wooloo gourd, the metal to kind of cut that earth energy. But I don't love the metal in the southeast, I will say. And so I don't recommend putting it there. If you've already got it, then you can do that. But remember, the southeast, the natal energy for that sector is wood. And so we don't want to counter that by putting in metal energy, although it will control that earth energy. What we want to do is probably just do a saltwater cure or your Wooloo gourd. Okay, so not a big deal for flying stars. Again, just some of the most usable ones are going to just be the northeast, and the probably crap one is going to be in the west for the month. Again, I have all this information on my blog post, so if you want to go look at that or look at the activation, because I do have dates for activations for the month that you could activate that north sector if you'd like to. And again, if you need help finding that area in your home, you can always message me and I'll mark it for you. Sectors we want to avoid renovation in for the month are, of course, going to be the south and the southwest with that Wuji or that 5 Tiger Shaw. Avoid renovations there. The west, southwest, and northwest, very specific areas. So if you want to do renovations in the area, we can, pinpoint a space, and make sure it's not hitting on one of those, what is called the yearly San Sha or the 3 killings. And so that tends to activate, and that will or can cause like illness, loss of money, or losing something. And so we don't want to do that. And so if you need to renovate those sectors, I would suggest a feng shui consultation beforehand. The east sector, of course, is the Tai Sui for the year. And in this this month, the Northeast, where the Ox area is going to be the month breaker. So avoid digging renovations and things like that in these sectors for the month. Let's take a quick sponsor break. And after the break for Folklore Friday, we're going to talk about those two Jie Qi or micro seasons that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, lesser heat and greater heat. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, when I talk about those Jie Qi cycles, those really are little micro seasons that kind of mark each month. And so again, each month we have two micro seasons, and they're called the 24 solar terms or the 24 Jie Qi. And obviously there's two in each month, right? Two for the 12 months, which makes 24 solar cycles. And when the new solar cycle starts, which is the beginning of spring, that does mark the beginning of the official new year and the new animal sign that comes in. And so for this month, I talked about the fact that it's a minor heat, a major heat, or a lesser heat and greater heat, and that it's really the hottest time of the year. And it's also the seasons that fall directly in the middle of that 24 solar terms. And so looking at minor heat or lesser heat, some of the things that mark the lesser heat are going to be the start of the monsoon season in China. And so it really is the time of year where they get the most rainfall. And one of the things you can kind of think about is kind of how your area is. We don't tend to get a lot of rainfall here in West Texas. And so it's not really a time that is marked by rainfall. It's actually a time that's marked by scorching, dry heat that kills everything. And so it might be a little bit opposite for you. I know some areas do tend to get a little monsoony or flash floods during this time. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. So again, these are local observances. So kind of think about what you observe in your part of the world at this time of year, and you will notice the same thing occur around the same time each year. Just like here we get what are called June bugs, which are just the brown beetles. And I swear the 1st of June every year, they start popping out, And so just, it's kind of like that, just little local traditions that you'll notice at the same time each year. And again, with the lesser heat, it's the start of that monsoon season, and they actually kind of break it down into 3 different micro seasons. And so they're 3 different markings, and they usually last about 5 days, it notes here. And so I'm going to put all these links in the show notes if you want to read about it yourself. But they're about 5 days long each, so hence the 15 days. The first one is marked by an intense heat wave, it says here, and then crickets will start appearing and hatching. And then the third one is eagles soaring high in the sky. So they start soaring higher and teaching their young to hunt and also avoid kind of getting out in that the super hot atmosphere and kind of going up towards a little bit cooler levels, because obviously the air cools as you get a little bit higher in the sky. So they'll also notice fireflies, but that's kind of marked by both the seasons here. And some of the traditions are going to be wearing jasmine in the hair. One of the things that it kind of noted that I thought was comical was that they usually did this because of the need to smell better. And so since it's such a time of intense heat, you're sweating more. And so it said here that women would kind of just tie jasmine in their hair. That way when the breeze hit, it would kind of carry the smell and kind of cover up the sweaty smell from the intense heat and moisture, the humidity. And of course, another one they would do to kind of cool off, it would be fishing. And so fish, remember, also is kind of a cooler food. So one of the things that it notes here is that lesser heat is followed by greater heat. And it says that it's kind of referred to as steaming you and then boiling you. So they'll get the monsoons and then the weather turns intense heat for greater heat. And of course, very humid depending on what part of the world you live in. Now looking at the 12th solar term of major heat or greater heat. So as it states, this really is the hottest time of year. And it's also the solar term that falls directly in the middle. So we're right at the midway point of the year. It's also the beginning of typhoon season and rainfall increasing during this time, just kind of depending on where you live. And they really do depend on that to help out with the crop growth because it can get pretty crispy pretty quick. Yeah. So being a little backyard gardener myself, I know that my plants really struggle this time of year and everything really starts kind of drying out. If I don't, I mean, even watering it really needs that rainfall. And so the three kind of micro seasons that occur during this time, remember they all just occur in the little 5-day window of time. One's called rotten grass reincarnating as fireflies. And so fireflies do start to appear. I'm just assuming that they will kind of lay their eggs in old grass. And that's why it's called that, like grass clippings or whatever. And then, of course, then they start to appear. We don't have fireflies in my part of Texas. But I remember seeing them as a kid and I really liked them. So you might notice more fireflies appearing during this time. The second one is hot and humid, where it is just hot and humid. And then the third one pretty kind of speaks for itself, and they refer to that as pouring rain. So there's not really a lot of traditions that kind of encompass this time of year. They're really just kind of probably trying to survive and just, survive the heat and keep their crops afloat, right? So one of the cool things, though, that it does kind of note that they did, I'm just going to read straight directly from thebeijinger.com. And of course, I'll link in the show notes here. It says, villagers living in coastal regions of the Xinjiang province would build a dashu boat during the solar term to show their gratitude to the god of diseases for not disrupting their lives at the time when one's immune system is put to the test. The boat was a replica of a traditional 3-masted ship, only much smaller in size and loaded with offerings for the gods. Usually a parade was held in the village and the ship was carried to the coast, with people who recently recovered from the disease joining the procession to show their thanks. All of this will culminate in skilled captains navigating the ship into open waters and then abandoning it. Alternatively, the villagers would burn the ship in the ocean, symbolizing the gods' acceptance of their wishes and gratitude. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. They make an offering up to the sea gods, and the god of disease. I'm not sure why that also kind of encompasses, putting the boat out there. Not really sure what the connection is there. So if you know, then shoot me an email, So another thing that they did was just kind of for both cycles, since it's so hot, was just eat those cooling foods and drink cooling teas. And I kind of mentioned this on the episode where I talked about staying healthy during the summer months where we eat, cooler foods. It's very yang, hot energy. So we want to put a little bit of, take some of that away, so we don't overheat. And of course, adding electrolytes to our body during this time of year, water obviously will do that. But just adding some other things that can add a little bit of the salts and stuff that we sweat out. So cooling foods and teas. And for them, really, that includes watermelon, the honeysuckle tea, and I'm going to throw this one in there, coconut water, because I know the coconut water does, kind of have some natural electrolytes and it's very hydrating and cooling. So anyway, you guys have the information here to kind of cool down and survive the rest of the summer months. All right, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Again, if you want to check anything out that I mentioned here on the show, if you want to know what your 4 zodiac signs are, if you need help finding anything on your floor plan, please just shoot me a message. And I do have links to the zodiac calculator, so that should be pretty easy to find on the website. Yeah, direct any feng shui questions. I do have a call-in line link or a Q&A link also. So, you can utilize those if you don't feel like emailing me directly. So feel free to do that, especially if you listen on Spotify, because that's where those links will go. So you guys have an amazing weekend, and I'll catch you guys next week. I'm really excited about next week's episode. I have a special guest, and we're going to talk about Taoist of Feng Shui, which is a very interesting conversation and just kind of different than anything I've ever really heard about with Feng Shui, although incorporating techniques that I've heard about. So pretty interesting stuff going on there. So come back next week for Janet Louie as a special guest talking about Taoist Feng Shui.
for a free energy mapping of your floor plan, please check the link in the show notes. To support today's podcast, go to learnfengshui.com, sign up for emails, leave a review, and share with your family and friends.